Before we go any further, I would just like to let everyone that is with tender sensibilities such as my own, that this is going to be some deep shit. We're talking about pedophiles, fetishes, gross things happening to children, and absolutely things that just shouldn't have happened. So I can't blame you if you want to turn it off.
Thank you very much, my friend. I appreciate it. And thank you all if you are still with me. Now, I grew up in the 90s. I was born in the late 80s, 88 to be specific. And growing up in the 90s, I was a big fan of Nickelodeon. And I believe that our generation is a very special one because we were heavily formed. And I don't think a lot of people seem to give this a lot of merit, but once you mull it over in your head, it may start to make a lot of sense. In the 90s, your personality was shaped very heavily by the very channel you frequented the most. A lot of people don't want to think that way, but it's very true. 90s was an interesting time. Cable was at an all-time boom. Multimedia was evolving rapidly, and it almost seemed like no one had enough time for their kids because of how fast the world had become. Moms weren't staying at home as much anymore, dads were working longer hours, and most of us were home alone until our parents got off work. So what did we do? Sat down, chilled out, watched all that, Keenan and Kel. Maybe some of y'all in the later years, a little bit of that iCarly, Sam and Cat, Victorious, Harvey Danger, all these, The Amanda Show, all these classic, fun memories from the 90s, all those inside jokes. And I look back on that fun time in the 90s and I smile and I laugh a little bit and I'm like, man, it'd be a great episode if we took a nostalgic look back at our favorite shows and our favorite people from those shows and let's just share that experience with everybody. And unfortunately for me, I did that sad thing that I tend to do, where I looked into the void and I just kept on looking. And that is why I'm aiming my guns today. For those of you who were big fans of all of the shows I mentioned, some of you may even be fans of the stars of those shows till this very day. Ariana Grande, anyone? But when I look back and I realize all the things that happened to them, now that I'm an adult, now that I see through it, now that suddenly a 16-year-old girl shoving her feet in her mouth and playing with a phallic-shaped toy while looking like a baby, suddenly that's not funny to me. Suddenly that seems weird. Suddenly I look up the creators of these shows, one in particular who for some odd reason has evaded justice and got a $7 million payout, one Dan Schneider, seems to be the cream of the crop when it comes to shit human beings. From 1993 until Nickelodeon finally got rid of this piece of shit in 2018, he made a career of making hit Nickelodeon sitcoms, sketch shows, and not even apparently, I believe, and I will put all of my sources down here that I can in the description below, from the cast of The Amanda Show all the way down to Victorious, Sam and Cat, which I believe was his last show.
Harvey Danger was the last project that had his name on it, which was eventually turned into a cartoon rather than being a live-action series.
Thank you very much. They just needed to get him off the screen and away from the property as quickly as possible. Suddenly in 2018, can you imagine that? Dropped and given his salary for 2 years, basically. $7 million. Social media's gone completely dead since then. Doesn't even post on his YouTube. But the young ladies that he worked with over the years have definitely been talking lately. I don't care what anyone says. If you look back, Jamie Lynn Spears was made to look like a little skank all around the United States. She was made to seem like she was loose, boy crazy, and she lost her show. She lost her shot at her dream of being successful like her big sister, who was also a victim of manipulation, but we already know that. And that little girl loses her show, Zoe 101. Why?
I mean, we all heard the rumors, and it wasn't even just a rumor. We knew she was pregnant, but there was a lot of discrepancies around who was the father.
You know what? And there was a lot of discrepancy around that. You're right, but I don't believe there's any discrepancy at all, because if you take a look-see...
Ooh, boy,
Yeah.
this anamorph-looking photo. We'll have that for you later, but little Maddie Aldridge looks a lot like our boy Dan.
So here's the thing, and this is no joke. We're not... I'm sorry to say it. The jokes are going to be rather light on this episode. Because again, we're not alone in this one, which is why we're not marooned. We're going to be taking shots, and I hope you're going to be lining your barrels up with us.
That child looks a lot like that dude. And if anybody who's ever looked at the Maury Show, you know that you can't just tell just by looks. But if ever there was a time when you look at a kid and based on the circumstances, when it happened.
Now, Mr. Schneider ran a casting camp where young girls as young as 11, between it was like 11, 14, and at the very oldest like 19 and 20. But I don't think any of the 19 or 20-year-olds really got gigs. You didn't really see them getting shows, now did you?
For clarity, it seems that was his boy Brian Peck, who you might remember with a cameo as the Pickle Man from a sketch and all that, ran the boot camp. It was, you know, they did it together, but it was his name on it.
No, both their names are on it.
Ah, excuse me.
Yeah, no, not to step on your toes.
Of course not. I just want everybody to have all the information.
Oh, we're gonna get to Pickle Boy. Matter of fact, this joke takes on an incredibly disgusting meaning. Now that I know that this very man sodomized a minor with an inanimate object. We watched these shows. We laughed at these jokes. We used to make the same type of jokes at our friends. We used to sexualize our friends and joke with them all the time because that is all we saw on TV, was girls getting their toes played with.
Who wants to see Victoria Justice get ketchup poured on her feet?
Pictures left and right of this man Judge Frolloing it up right behind all these young girls, hands on them, hugging them, smelling their hair. And then the icing on the cake. A young girl gets pregnant and America turns on her, and instead of doing an investigation to catch a very obvious pedophile and route all of the abuse happening at Nickelodeon Studios, they sweep it under the rug, they shame this poor young lady, and now she's stuck raising this child and probably forced to sign non-disclosure agreements and everything else under the sun to protect this fat piece of shit. Because for some odd reason, we always need to protect the fat, predatory pieces of shit. Now, if you look at the list of other people that Dan the Now, if you look at the list of people who worked with Dan Suck My Dick to Get on Nick Schneider, you'll notice everybody's got a mugshot but Danny. I guess when you make the most money, I guess when you have the most hit shows, you don't have to serve any prison time when you fuck up an entire generation of kids by putting your foot fetish porn on TV all throughout the 90s. I guess when you make the most money, you never have to pay for ruining a young teenage girl's life when you were old enough to be her grandfather. I guess when you're making the most money and making the best shows and you got all these young children fans, you get to just keep preying on them until they can't cover up your bullshit anymore. And then you get a payout. And then you get to live out your life nice and safe. And you feel like, well, maybe it's over. Sorry, Dan. It wasn't over for Bill. Bill Cosby's rotting in prison right now, blind and can not even wipe his own arse, and no one cares. No one cares that he had a big show and that he was famous. He was everyone's sitcom dad. You'll rot just like him. If there's an ounce of justice in this world, you will rot too. Because you shaped a generation, sir. Infantilized and viewed as nothing but naive, sexually inquisitive children forever, thanks to you and your media. But I guess I just can't blame you and you alone, right? I mean, we apologize for this stuff. We just let it happen, right? As long as you're a fan of it, as long as it makes money, you should be allowed to keep doing it, right? I mean, that's what we're doing with the other Dan right now.
Oh, good old Dan Harmon and that weird parody.
Y'all love Rick and Morty, right?
Right.
Now, I'm sure a lot of us are fans of...
Yeah, it's a pretty good show.
Yeah.
I can't look at it the same way, but when it was good, it was good.
I can't look at it at all. Apparently, I'm just too much of a normie to get Dan Harmon's sense of humor. Now that guy, he's got a sense of humor. I can't get it at all, though.
Well, why is that, Cap?
I don't know. It might have something to do with the fact that I can't seem to find the joke behind you being a therapist, signing medication to your patient to help them sleep, and then while they're asleep, sneaking into their bedroom to rape their baby because they will be asleep and drugged up so they won't be able to do anything. And that's the joke. Apparently, I don't get that joke, and I'm asking you guys because I want to see if you maybe get the joke. Maybe you get what I'm missing.
Well, he said it was supposed to be a Dexter parallel, but I don't see that either. The series, not the cartoon.
It's a parody of the Dexter series where, you know, the murderer with a conscience
Kills other murderers.
No,
I don't see the parallel between that. I don't see how that's supposed to satirize or parody the other.
My question is, okay, if he was a murderer that killed other murderers, and that was the premise of the show, Dan, Mr. Harmon, I mean, you work here in Georgia pretty often. Your show is produced here in Georgia, so by all means, bro, I mean, you could... I know I'm nobody, but I don't have to be anybody to confront a potential pedophile, I don't believe, Mr. Harmon. So, by all means, if you've got the balls, since you want to apologize over Twitter half-assedly about this, maybe you could explain the joke to us. What exactly is funny about you prescribing medication to your patient so that they're so sleepy that you can sneak into their house using their information, breaking their trust, and then sodomize their baby. What about that is funny, Mr. Harmon? What exactly is funny about that, Mr. Harmon? That's why your show, Rick and Morty, will be canceled. That's why your entire empire you've built up is about to crumble like it was a sandcastle at high tide. Because you, my friend, are a true piece of shit. Now, a lot of people are going to come out and say, like they always do, that was so long ago. I have a little caveat with the whole, well, that was so long ago argument, which they are definitely going to use, along with he's already apologized, which we'll get to that. If it were 9 or 10 years ago and Dan Harmon were, I don't know, 19, 18, 20, I'd be willing to give that some weight. But when you're 36 years old and you've already been working in the industry for a while, it doesn't matter that 10 years ago you did it. Because at 36 years old, Dan Harmon should have known better.
No reason not to.
At 45, he definitely knows better, which is why he's hoping you won't bring it up. Just like the other Dan, who may have started, dare I say it, not started. I'm not going to give him that much credit. I'm not going to give him that much credit. I won't say started it, but definitely assisted with the grooming of an entire generation. And that's very prevalent, isn't it? Because you look at other people, like our other Dan, who thinks raping a baby is a joke. See, it's funny. It's funny when you do that to kids, apparently. That's the big joke. The big joke is, yeah, well, see, it's funny because you're not supposed to do it. I guess that's it. Well, here's what I think is funny. I think it's funny. I think it's hilarious that your show will either continue on without you or will dis-a-fucking-peer. And the only cliffhanger we'll have left is the last line from your shitty self-insert character. Oh, man. I'm a shitty father, but at least I'm a good friend. And even that last friend fucking hated him. Because of the shitty things he had done before he decided to be a good friend. Everyone acts like that show is so smart and that they learned so many things from that show. But you know what? The only thing I've learned from watching that show is artists really do avoid therapy by throwing all their issues on the screen. When you see the level of blatant nihilism that this man portrays in everything he does, how could you not see that Dan Harmon is an unhealthy individual who should probably be doing more than figuring out what the next season of Rick and Morty should entail? He should probably either be getting some psychiatric help, or, because he's been well aware of everything he's been doing, just send him to fucking prison. Because of people like him, because of people like Schneider, we now have an entire generation of people who have been infantilized. We have a bunch of littles running around and people with daddy issues galore because they were forced to be adult children when we were still children. We were viewed as adults. We were viewed sexually by adults all through the 90s, and it was right in front of our faces. And now, in current year, You guys are about to let it keep happening because a guy who is giving us every red flag made a show you fucking like. I can't stand it. He made a stupid show. And that's enough to keep him going, huh? What happens when somebody comes forward in a few years? Then what are you going to say? You going to do like R. Kelly? Yeah, but Rick and Morty's fire, though. I'm still watch the show. You going to make sure that he can pay off them lawyers, right? Because you love that show. Just like our parents made sure that Mr. Schneider got to get away with $7 million because they didn't care enough to point out all that creepy shit. Are we doomed to repeat it? I hope not. I truly hope not. I have nothing to pray to other than my hope in humanity. And as disappointed as I have been in this year in my faith in humanity, I really hope that I am completely wrong this time. I truly do. I would like to think that Dan Harmon will come forward and admit that that was fucked up and step down and get some help. That's literally the only thing that you should do at this point, Dan. Show people that you're not a piece of shit. Show people that you know that was in bad taste. Show people that you understand how fame has fucked a generation. How supporting a show, despite the creators being horrible people, has led to a new culture that glorifies licking toilet seats if it gets you attention. Bro, it started with you guys taking these kids whose parents were so willing to be rich that they would let you do whatever you wanted to their daughters, to the point where now you've got girls like Amanda Bynes, who is out of her fucking mind, that poor girl. Richard Pryor talking about fucking 3 young white girls at Dan Schneider's little camp. I can't even watch Richard Pryor anymore. And guess what? I'm alright with that. Because fuck them. The moment I find out somebody abuses a child, I don't care anymore. I don't want anything to do with them. It doesn't matter how long ago they did it. Fuck them. Fuck R. Kelly. Fuck Jay-Z. Dude's a groomer. Don't believe me? How old was Beyonce when they started messing around with each other? Anybody. Anyone on the deck.
I mean, they were introduced to one another when she was 16 and he was good and grown. And didn't her daddy come out with a tell-all talking about her and Kelly got molested on Jagged Edge video sets?
What are you asking that? Didn't he? Oh, absolutely he did. But it never seems to matter whenever there's a tell-all written, huh? So what do? The world's on fire, and it seems that as long as you make a hit show, you have a free pass to molest little white girls until you get bored of them.
Like your boy John K.
John K., the creator of Ren and Stimpy, famously dating a 16-year-old girl who loved to whip Polaroids out of his pocket and flash them at people and go, what do you think of this? Polaroids of a 16-year-old girl servicing this man. Can't watch Ren and Stimpy anymore. Sit there and watch the interviews on the Adult Party cartoon and the way he lusts after little girls and their bodies, the way he talks about, Nickelodeon just wouldn't let me draw any sexy girls, you know?
And here's my princess of sexy girl drawers.
And here's my princess of all sexy girl drawers, another young woman who reached out to him when she was 14 saying, I want to be a cartoonist. And you know the grossest part about that? He did a parody of that in an episode of Ren and Stimpy. where a little kid wrote into Stimpy as a fan and then Ren wrote him back some fuck shit. And I know this is ranty. It's because it's a problem. And I can't really think of a formal way to deliver it to you all. I really can't. Because this doesn't require formality. It requires action.
I mean, pedos are worth getting the broadside cannons.
Our children, our generation, rather, let me just focus on millennials for a second. Let me focus on our own generation. We were exploited heavily. We were experimental at best, disposable at worst. Just about all of us were damn near forgettable, though. And that was reflected in our shows. Even the characters we looked up to were desperate to find approval, find meaning. They were involved in heavy, traumatic ordeals. Degrassi had no business calling itself a kid's show. And it's been perpetuated now. Netflix, Sabrina. It's cool that you do a dark take on Sabrina. But why is she still a teenager? I get it, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, but this is 2020. Why are you going to make the teenage sexuality the main driving force of an entire season?
Yeah, that's kind of why I dropped out on watching that one. Way too much teenagers having sex. Too much. Way too much.
Teenage sexuality, #1 topic to talk about in every show. The glorification of teenage suicide. Oh, the deification of suicide. 13 Reasons Why. There has to be a change. Things have to be different. And that difference starts with us. We're the generation that was neglected. We're the generation that was forgotten. And if we give up, and if we stop trying to out these people, to stop this abuse, then it will perpetuate. The enemy of our peoples, the enemy of humanity, is that greed, that predatory nature. And we've let it bleed into our entertainment at its core. We were the generation raised by pedophile media, traumatized into being littles and everything else in between, and then mocked for never growing up and having a detachment from reality. Because whenever we try to talk about the abuse that we've endured, we get told it didn't happen. The reason why these stories of these young child actors that we grew up watching having breakdowns hits me and my friends so hard is because we're their age. And they might be famous, but a lot of us remember adults doing that very same thing to us. It was a surprisingly common thing in the 90s and 2000s. And it needs to end. It will end. If I have to be the hell they threaten over high water, this will end. So I'm calling you both out. Dan Schneider, Dan Harmon, if you've got a set of balls between the two of you, you'll answer for your crimes. You'll give up your power and your riches if you're actually sorry. Anything else you do, anything else, short of giving away the freedom that you still have, admitting to your wrongdoings, anything short of that, is proof that you didn't give a shit about a single one of those girls whose lives you have ruined. You didn't give a shit about the entire generation of kids that grew up watching teenagers be objectified on screen, sexualized 13 to 16-year-olds. You don't give a shit about that because you got your fucking jollies off from 1993 to 2018 in your case, Mr. Schneider. And Dan Harmon, we seem to learn something new and shitty about you every year. The time's up. Fuck your show. Fuck Netflix for putting any of Dan Schneider's shows on their streaming service. Fuck Cartoon Network. Fuck Adult Swim. Fuck Justin Roiland for covering up for that piece of shit, continuing to act like a babbling idiot next to him. And fuck you if you're still a fan of these men. You don't have to believe me. You can type their names in yourself. You can do the research yourself, but I'll provide some things for you. Because fuck them. I'm not saying attack these men, but I am saying expose these men. Your words and our unity is the only weapon we need. There is no place for them to hide. The internet is vast, and they've been around for a long, long time. And those poor victims may have had to sign agreements, but the generation that grew up watching your fucking shows did not. Thank you. If you endured this storm with me, thank you if you agree. Thank you if you don't. And if your perspective is different than mine, if you think I'm completely fucking wrong, by all means, let me know. I don't mind engaging with anyone on this one. This is a fine hill to die on. Do the right thing. That's all I ask.
Someone asked why we got to be the ones to break all these generational curses. It's hard. I said, if not us, then who?
Well, the generation before us refused to.
Like I said,
until we learn how to be decent to each other, until we can turn on the TV and know that our kids are just watching something funny, and it's just that it's something funny and something light that they can enjoy. I don't have to look over my shoulder and make sure there's no fetish fuel going on in it. I could turn on the TV and know the people behind a show weren't diddling kids. It would be wonderful. And that's why we have to do it. Because there are giants out there that seem to control everything. And while they're controlling everything, and while they've got everyone entertained, by making these children dance, dancing for their pleasure, to line their coffers. But that doesn't matter, right? Because you fucking love Pickle fucking Rick. Be better. And if you can't be better, get the fuck out of my way.
The subject matter on this episode is a heavy one, we know, and though the views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the individuals expressing them, know that no matter what faction we are, no matter what faction you are, we are a unified stand against the abuse of children mentally or physically in any form. And if you yourself are a victim of any of these types of things, there are organizations that exist to be able to get help. But above and beyond that, we are here for you. If you want to reach out, feel free. On that note, love each other, protect each other. Peace.